Great poet William Arthur Ward said the following: "The mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, the great teacher inspires. A not-so-great poet, but all-around good guy and history teacher nonetheless, yours truly, Avi Klein, says that the will to learn can exceed expectations when the teacher inspires, and students hear only the sound of their own mental thresholds reach new and unknown heights." With me at this time, along with my co-host Jarrell T. Williams, Carmine Rizzo.
Hey.
Is a teacher that needs no introduction but will nevertheless receive one. A man who doesn't waste any time making sense, a thinker, not a stinker, the guru of logic, Al Snow. Welcome aboard, Al.
Yes, welcome.
Hi, guys. Hi.
How's it going?
Yeah.
Very good. I don't think I've ever had an introduction quite like that, but it was pretty tremendous. So thank you.
Have you ever been called the guru of logic before? Is it the first time you've been called that?
That's the first time, yeah. That's the first time. I've been called a lot of things, but not the guru of logic.
Okay. Great.
That's great.
Well deserved.
The king of introductions.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
The most pressing and hard-hitting questions that this side of 60 Minutes is upon you right now. The first question I want to ask you, Al, it's of the utmost importance, and have you gone the last week without eating any Reese's Pieces lately?
Actually, no. Today, I've got a new addiction, the Hershey's bar that has the Reese's Pieces inserted in them.
Oh, those are good.
Wow. I saw that.
Yeah.
Really good.
I saw the ad for that. I haven't had one yet. Oh,
yeah,
man.
me either.
You gotta try them. They're really good. Al, so you had an affinity for Reese's Pieces. How long did that last?
I still do. I have a very obsessive personality, as you quite evidently, and I'll get on certain bends, but I'll get on the Reese's Pieces kick now. I only get Reese's Pieces when I go to the movie theater, and then I always have to have those. So.
The more novelty.
Yeah, but they're like $10 over there. You might as well buy them before you go to the movie theater. That's what I do.
Yeah, you got a second mortgage to go to the theater today with your woman. I mean, it's crazy. Nuts.
Yeah. That's why my wife carries a purse so that she can carry my Reese's Pieces in.
Nice.
Kill two birds with one stone. Al, growing up in Lima, I knew you grew up in Lima, and I just have to ask you this really quickly. When you were growing up in the 70s, did you frequent Montgomery Ward's, Redmore Bookstore, Musicland, Super X, Hot Sam Pretzels?
Of course, and Chef King, and all the stores at the mall. You had to go to those. Get the T-shirts that had the letters ironed on,
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
You were like a mall guy then, I guess, right?
Well, there wasn't a whole lot else to do in Lima, Ohio. I mean, come on.
Oh, wow.
So by default, I guess. Music-wise, did you grow up listening to particular music? And another question to follow up to that would be, has your music changed? I mean, your taste in music, has it changed over the years, or is it still kind of reminiscent to what it was when you were a kid?
Well, I'm very eclectic when it comes to music. I like lots of different stuff, but I've always been a big fan of funk music, Parliament, and
nice.
P-Funk, and Rick James, and Tina Marie, and and then and I'm old enough that when rap was first coming on the scenes, and Curtis Blow, you'd have to go out and buy
wow.
the long play album.
Bring it old school, yeah.
He wasn't allowed to be played on the radio because he cursed. So he had to buy
come a long way since then.
Yeah, that was before the edited version.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Al, did you come from like a political household? Was politics discussed at the dinner table, or was that off topic?
Politics was discussed once in a while, but not heavily. And still to this day, I really, I realize that we are more the captain of our ship than, it don't matter who you put in there in the White House. There's people that are the power behind it. So everybody gets upset about a president, and it's like, you need to get upset about the people that don't change, the people that you don't see and that you don't hear from. Those are the people you should get upset about.
Yeah.
The unspoken majority, Nixon said it best, although he didn't follow through. But I mean, for me, I kind of like the analogy I usually use is my wife. I mean, no matter how many wives I've had, and I've had a few, it stays the same. No matter who's like in charge, the same kind of, it's the same motto, the same kind of repertoire. Yeah,
no matter who's sitting in there.
I've given up. No matter which wife leads this household. I am second in command to her no matter what. No matter what.
Well, that means you'll have a happy life.
Yeah, I mean...
Well,
go ahead,
we have our own battles to fight, regardless of who's in there. Like, we, like I said, we man our own shit. I live by that, too.
Well, yeah, but, really the captain of the ship are women. And,
yeah.
and if you don't believe me, what's every U.S. president had?
A wife.
Absolutely.
They've had a wife. You think that's by accident? They're not going to let us run the world's most powerful country by ourselves.
No.
That's true. You're legally not allowed if you don't have a wife.
What do we always go to war with? Dictators. Notice the first part of that word, dictator.
Wow.
What's every dictator been? They've been bachelors. They've not been married. So women don't want us men to see another man running a country successfully on his own. He must die. So.
That's well said, and that's why it's called history. It's our history. It's our version. They never agree with it anyway. They're always going to revise it. It's not called herstory. It's called history. Did you follow sports aside from pro wrestling as a child? And look, I'm not going to ask you the same boring questions that you've been asked a million times about the Ole Anderson experience. I know what that was. But, I mean, prior to pro wrestling, was there really a sport that you gravitated to?
More martial arts than anything else. But, where I grew up in Northwest Ohio, you could be... We had 4 major NFL teams. We had the Browns, we had the Bengals, we had the Tigers, and we had the Bears. And then, which sounds like I lived in a zoo, but or I was part of Wizard of Oz. And then, baseball, we had the Reds, we had, the Indians, we had the Tigers, and then, we had the Cubs and the Sox, and then, basketball, we had the Pistons, we had, so you could get, once cable came around, because yes, I am that old to where there wasn't cable at one time.
Sure.
We actually used the aerial antennas, or your dad seeing back there.
UHF, of course,
13 channels only.
You break the knob off, you get a pair of vice grips, and you turn the channel.
Yep.
Which sport did you, I know you actually have an extensive martial arts background, but as far as, I guess, just as a voyeur, as someone who's watched sports growing up, did you gravitate towards one more so than the other? Football, baseball, basketball?
More football. I gravitated to that, and I played football in junior high, but I was guarding tackle. I guarded anybody that came near the water. I guarded the water can and tackled anybody that came near it. So,
guarded the Gatorade.
You were essentially the water boy before the water boy.
I was the water boy before the water boy.
As you brought up the water boy, Carmine, I mean, to be honest, I was thinking of Adam Sandler movies, but for some reason that movie always escapes me. It always escapes me.
Oh, man, that's in my top 5 Adam Sandler movies for sure. That's a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of movies, though, Al, this is something I definitely have.
I think there's only 5 top Adam.
Yeah, right. I was thinking the same.
I don't even think that it's that.
No, he's got a lot of good movies. That's a whole nother discussion. Come on, Avi. I saw Zohan with you, Avi. You loved Zohan. You loved Zohan.
I fell asleep during it. I don't remember. I wanted to ask you something. As far as, speaking of movies, I definitely have to know about this. So you had an uncredited role in one of my favorite movies of all time, which is entitled Rudy, which came out in '93.
Yeah.
Now, were you part of were you on set in Indiana or Illinois?
That was out of, I was living in Ohio at the time, and I was, was working with Dan Severn, training him, and his friend was a coach for the semi-pro team out of Michigan.
Right.
And, so they, NCAA rules wouldn't allow them to use the actual football players for the movie.
Sure.
They had to use, they had to use, semi-pro players. So they brought semi-pro players out of Chicago, and then they brought semi-pro players out of Michigan. And then, Dan contacted me like 2 or 3 days into the filming and said, hey, they still need guys. You want to do it? Do you want to work on the movie? And I'm like, sure, yeah, come on over. So we worked on that from probably July till December, I think.
Oh, nice.
Were any of the principals on set, or was it just pretty much, I guess, the athletes or the background or the featured?
No, gosh, what's his name? That played Rudy. Sean Astin.
Sean Astin.
Sean Astin and all the guys were there, and they were all really terrific. You know, Sean Astin was a terrific person. I mean, he was a really nice guy. I met him again a couple of years ago and then in Amsterdam, and mentioned working with him, being around him and stuff on that movie, and he remembered, and he was a wonderful person. I mean, really,
was there a bit of a haze when you were speaking to him in Amsterdam about Rudy?
Were you guys at the Were you at the Bulldog at the time in the red light district talking about Rudy?
No. Listen, I'm messed up enough. I don't need to do anything else. I'm
high on life.
I'm a mess. So yeah.
I would have to ask you that.
Anybody can do anything they want. I don't care. You know what? Shoot peanut butter up your ass. I don't care. I really don't. I think we should legalize all drugs. I've never done a drug in my life, and I'll be quite honestly, but I quite honestly believe they should legalize them all, because what you do in the comfort and safety and security of your own home, do it. I'm not going to judge you.
I agree with you. If Richard Gere can legally stick a weasel up his ass, which he does.
A gerbil. It was a gerbil.
Oh, was it a gerbil? Was it a gerbil?
I mean, yeah. We got to get it right. We got to get it right.
I got to be more specific on this. That's a detailed count, damn it. But Al, did you get a bit of an itch? I mean, I know it was like a lot of it has to do with your athletic background, but later on, you found yourself on set with guys like Christopher Lloyd. One of my favorite actors, Lance Henriksen. You worked with him too, right?
Yeah, he's also a very, very nice person. Really.
Right. Is that something that you further want to pursue, or was it just kind of, did it come around by circumstance or by chance?
No, I was pursuing it very frequently. I've done quite a few acting roles. I've been very fortunate. It just, the only thing is that in order to really pursue, anything, you've got to devote yourself and focus on it. And, I've still been very heavily involved in professional wrestling.
Right.
And then, and still that takes, to this day, it takes a lot of my time. I literally just sent an email today where I had to pass on a film role in Australia in April because they wanted me to come for 10 or 15 days to film the role in a major film, and I just told them I couldn't because of my obligations and responsibilities to OVW. So I couldn't take that much time.
I actually admire the fact that you do have, your priorities, and I know the opening that I did was not supposed to be sardonic or sarcastic. That came from the heart. You've been obviously shown to millions. You've been presented as quite the teacher, and I think that's one of the things that people identify you as. Would it be a fair assessment to say that when people stop you by the street or recognize you, do they recognize you more for Tough Enough than being a pro wrestler or having the background that you do in other extensive art forms that you partook in?
They do recognize me a lot more, I believe, from Tough Enough, and that really is because it reached a much, larger audience. It reached a very, general audience, the Mr. and Mrs. Walmart, as I like to call them, because there's a greater percentage of the population that those people than there are, let's say, just
that's a good point, right?
And it was an awesome experience. It was an amazing opportunity to be involved with something, and I've been so grateful that I was got to be a part of that for so long, and it was.
It's funny because that's the stuff I mark out for. I don't mark out for high spots. I don't mark out for spots in the ring or interviews or promos. What I mark out for is just genuine care, and you can't fake that. I mean, it resonated all over you, just how much you cared about these kids. And, I mean, again, it doesn't mean anything for someone like me to applaud you, but I applaud you for that. It really came across,
Well, thank you. Thank you.
A sad distinction to bring up, both Chris Pallies, otherwise known as King Kong Gamandi, who was nice enough to actually help me, when I couldn't perform a lick, when I dabbled in indie work many moons ago. I was horrible in the ring. But Chris Pally, otherwise known as King Kong Bundy, passed late last night, and I think you had a show scheduled him upcoming. And the other thing that happened too was yesterday Keith Flint, who was the front man for the iconic band Prodigy, whose song you came out to in ECW entitled "Breathe," both passed away the same day. It's kind of weird. I mean,
oh wow, I didn't even see that connection. Yeah,
he passed yesterday. Yeah. I mean, but did you again having someone coming out to someone's theme music doesn't necessarily mean you meet these guys. I know that Paul Heyman maybe won't even license the music or go through any kind of formats to do so. But did you meet any of these guys? Were we close to Chris Pally's or meet him at all or work with him at any indie shows?
Chris was really, a good friend, and I really appreciated and enjoyed his wit and his humor, and of course we didn't get to spend as much time together, but whenever we would see each other, we'd pick right back up again, and I'll miss him. I mean,
it was horrible when I heard that.
He was a really, really wonderful person. He really, if he liked you, he would go out of his way to, take care of you and do whatever he could for you. And, and if he didn't, he would, you knew exactly where you stood. I mean,
in 1999, Al, I worked the show, and again, doesn't make me a former pro wrestler. Doing a few indie shows doesn't make you when I was horrible, and I know that. And I knew that back then. But, I worked a couple of shows at a promotion called the WWF, in Long Island years ago. And King Kong Bundy had walked up to me and had asked me very politely if an individual who was a bit more obese than him had paid me, who was the promoter. And surely enough, I said, yeah, he paid me. And he just wanted to make sure I was okay. He said, how much did he pay you? I said, $50. Looked inside my wallet, and I had $100 there. Crazy. Just insane. You don't hear stuff like that. I had known him from a few previous shows, and we, as an ensemble, we'd go eat at a diner, and just a sweetheart of a guy. It's sad.
Yeah,
it's just really sad.
Wonderful person. Yeah, wonderful person. So.
The other thing I wanted to ask you regarding just destinations. I mean, you've been all across the world. You mentioned your really wild experience in Amsterdam, which I know you didn't get into detail, but we'll fill in the blanks. It's okay. Other places on your bucket list, maybe perhaps that you haven't visited that you'd like to see?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I would. Still lots of places. I'd love to go to Russia. I'd love to go to Moscow. I've never had the opportunity to go there yet, and certainly would love to go there. I would love to go to Malta and to Sicily over in Italy.
Oh wow!
I've been to Italy, but not had a chance to go there. I'd love to go to Turkey.
Check out Palermo. I was in Palermo. It's really nice.
Yeah. I'd love to go to Turkey. I've not had the opportunity to go there either. I've been very blessed to go to a lot of places, do a lot of things, see a lot of things.
Of course.
That, people, only read about in books or see on the internet. And, all thanks, because of being blessed to be a wrestler.
And is it one of those? Is it one of those things though where it's just traveling, the mundane aspect of getting off the plane, getting a rental car, checking into a hotel, maybe catching a nap, getting some food, working out, and then doing a show? Did it disallow you from really just checking out the sites more? Or did you kind of make yourself, when time was available, just make yourself get up and kind of see places or see things that you normally wouldn't?
I would go out of my way to get up and get out, and I would even sacrifice working out because, I would tell some of the other guys, I'm like, they would make it a point to, want to go to the gym, and I'm like, listen, I can go to the gym back in the United States. I can't go see this, and there's no guarantee that I'm ever going to come back here again. So,
sure.
I got to make sure that I go out and experience and see what I can see. And so I always did make it a point to do those things.
You mentioned working out. Are you currently on? I think from what I noticed, the transformation looks incredible. You were never out of shape. Are you currently on an ISO program, a body split program?
No. What I've told lots of people that I I've done every type of routine that, bodybuilding routine and things like that.
Sure.
I started working out when I was 16. I'm now 55.
God bless you.
And one of the things that people don't take into account is muscle maturity.
Right.
The development over time, and that's a big component of things. But also, one of the biggest things for me was quite a few years ago, I started perusing the internet, and I came upon this website for old-time strongmen and old-time wrestlers, like from back in the the early 1900s, actually.
Sure.
And,
oh, wow.
I saw a picture. One of the pictures I saw was of George Hackenschmidt, and he looked incredible. And I just was like, "What the hell is this guy doing?" I mean, for him to look like that back when they didn't even know what calories were or nutrition was.
That's so surreal, Al. Because when I saw photos of this guy, I'm like, I thought the same thing either. I'm like, how did this guy get to that at that time? Turn of the century, we're talking about. I mean, incredible.
Well, I decided to start using the techniques and the training methods that most guys did, and that was the start of the change, was that I started doing those things instead of just doing the typical push-pull. And
of course,
I still do the push-pull, but I haven't done bench press, and I honestly don't know when the last time it was I did it. If I do any kind of presses, I'll do dumbbells and but I won't lay on the bench.
So there's chest variations to overcompensate the fact that you're not doing any bench pressing.
I do a lot of push-ups. I do, different variations of push-ups.
Dips.
I do dips. I do, dumbbell presses, things like that. Because I have adopted the fact that if they didn't have it back then and they didn't use it back then and they were that developed then why should I do it now?
I really like that. To be honest, I don't think I'll ever come across anybody I ever speak to in the entire history of my own life that will ever say that. But I respect it. Yeah. That's just it's just neat, though. You know what I mean? Like, you don't come across people that are dedicated to actually saying, look, if it worked years ago, aesthetically speaking, and it could work today.
Because we fool ourselves into thinking that we need all this technology and all this extra stuff, and you really don't. It was amazing what people were able to do back then with much less, and we've become so reliant on all this stuff. But you don't necessarily need the extras.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, Al. Like when you were doing the training, when you were doing the wrestling training, like the weightlifting, the exercise, like you also said that you were into martial arts. Did you find yourself at some point having to sacrifice, because you said martial arts was always like, your main thing, but did you end up having to sacrifice that at some point to where you had to focus more on going to the gym, getting your body right, practicing like, your wrestling, or were you able to incorporate everything, or was there a point where where you said to yourself like, man, I haven't actually worked on my martial arts in a long time and you missed it, or like how was
Terrell, I said it was a good question. You could stop.
Yeah.
Actually, I have, the martial arts training has helped immensely in professional wrestling, and having an understanding of body mechanics, how to move, how to control my body, which allows me to better safely and control other people's, and have a better understanding. And but yeah, there was a point where I had to, kind of distance myself from martial arts and trying to devote myself to the wrestling, because no matter what the fighting style and professional wrestling, which is actually catch wrestling, it's like the precursor to modern day mixed martial arts. Actual real like professional wrestling is catch wrestling, and catch wrestling is where you hook guys, you hook holds, you hook you hook a joint, you hook a body part, and you try to get them to submit, and or you choke them out, things like that. And but every type of fighting, no matter whether it's boxing, it's different styles of martial arts, if it's wrestling, they all have their own timing, their own distance, and their own footwork. And it's very important that you develop that proper timing, distance, and footwork so that you can, perform, the physical aspects the proper way. And in order to do that, you've got to program your body. You've got to, you've got to do it to where you create muscle memory, so that you don't have to consciously think of it while you're out there.
And that goes with working out as well. I mean, when you're working out in the gym, a lot of it is muscle memory. If you haven't worked out, I was injured. I actually tore my meniscus, and I was out for a long time. And just going back into the gym, you'd be surprised what you can retain. Of course, a lot of it is range of motion, and you want to alter things so you don't plateau. But you're right. Like, muscle memory is a really underrated component when it comes to just any type of physicality.
Yeah. Well, you need it most importantly when you're fighting, because if you get hit, you can't think. You're thinking all other things other than what you should.
That's a good point.
And if you're in professional wrestling, you're you're thinking about so many different things at the same time at every moment that you're in that ring, that the last thing you need to do is focus on, okay, right foot, left foot, right foot, turn left this way, don't lean, don't, change levels at your knees, don't change levels at your waist, things like that. It's
the way you're mentioning this, like, it's so simplistic, but it's something that you don't comprehend, and you broke it down so amazingly well, because when you think about it, especially today when, there's a lot of people in the back, I guess the model of how they feel they need to maybe get over, or maybe it's just something that's mandated from above, is to go ahead and dictate what a match should be based on 3 pages worth of dialogue of movesets. And it's like, wow, so you're cramming that stuff and you memorize it. But I almost equate it to somebody who has a lot of dialogue doing a play or doing a film. If there's no emotion behind what you're saying, it's going to come across just as complete drabble. And isn't that one of the things do you find that to be a detriment today, that matches are almost too overloaded in a way?
Undoubtedly, because, the performers are, and that's what they are, they're just performers. The performers are so busy and so consumed with trying to perform what they have rehearsed in their heads and visualized in their heads. So a couple of things happen. One, they perform what they've visualized in their head at the rate and at the speed of what they have rehearsed mentally.
Sure.
And it's too fast for the audience to follow and appreciate. And they don't have an opportunity to accept everything.
It's almost too many
that the performers don't live in the moment.
Right.
What I mean by live in the moment is they don't react anymore. They don't react or interact, one, with each other, or two, with the audience, like they used to do.
Right.
They just simply, if you were, and you don't even see this anymore, because they're so caught up in trying to get to the next thing. And I'm not dissing, I'm just pointing.
Yeah.
No,
of course.
But if someone were to grab another person's hair, or even if a girl wrestler grabs another girl's hair to gain some kind of advantage or upper hand, the girl that had her hair grabbed, or the guy that had his hair grabbed, they don't react like they would, which is that if that were to actually happen, the first reaction of anybody would be, I'm gonna kick this guy's ass, or I'm gonna kick this girl's ass.
Yes.
And they don't. They just simply they just take the bump, or they do whatever they're going to do, and then they move on to the next thing.
Amazing point.
That's
an amazing point. I almost stopped me too, where if there's
seven things.
Right.
The problem with this is there are 7 physical things, only 7 physical things that we do in the ring that an audience knows physically what it feels like, that have experienced. One of those is
7 legitimately 7? Is that an actual, like, you mean with, like, as far as you're being literal about that 7?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it. Nobody in the audience has ever hit the ropes. No one has ever jumped off the top rope. No one's ever taken a backdrop. No one's thrown a drop kick. No one's ever taken a bump in the ring. And if you were to ask anyone that sits in the audience what that ring is, how does it feel, they'd tell you it's a mattress or trampoline, and it's nothing like that. It's
exactly.
It doesn't give you further from it. But if you ask them what a headlock feels, well, everybody, if they had a brother or sister, everyone's had a headlock. If you've had your hair pulled, somebody snatched you by the hair.
Yes.
Even if it's your own parent, your mom, who's smartening you up. Even if you've tripped and fallen and hit your face against something, you know what it feels like, and you don't want to be punched in the face.
Sure.
You know what it feels like to get hit in the solar plexus. You know what it feels like to get choked, even if you just choked on food.
Yeah.
My wife's cooking, by the way.
If you lived in a trailer park, you certainly have experienced being choked. So, but the problem is that if getting poked in the eye, we've all had that happen, right? So, but in wrestling, I'm going to take you, I'm going to place your throat across the rope, and I'm going to stand on your back, and literally, I'm strangling you, or I'm going to get you down on the mat. This still does happen. You see the guys do it all the time. They get a guy down on the mat in both hands, and they follow the guy. Well, the ref gets the guy off, gets your opponent away from you, and you just stand up and like nothing happened. Now, if you've ever choked on anything, a piece of food, you've been choked, you're basically coughing, wheezing, you're dry heaving, trying to get air, and as a result, when you don't properly react and sell.
You're making the other guy look bad. You got to sell it.
You're not making the other guy look bad. You're making everything you do fake. Because if they cannot relate to what they've experienced, they can't relate to what you're doing that they've never experienced at all.
Right.
And this all actually boils down on a very subconscious level, but it makes perfect sense. The other thing, too, is if there's a snafu in the ring, a lot of times maybe because, and again, a lot of time maybe it's not the performer's fault, especially on TV, because they're only allowed a certain amount of time, so they're trying to make the best of it. But if there's a snafu in the ring, a lot of times do you feel like a lot of the younger guys, or maybe, I want you to talk about your school a little bit later, but do you feel like a lot of the guys are actually trying to rework themselves back to the spot that they just missed, and in essence what they're doing is completely breaking the fourth wall in a way, in my opinion. I mean, do you feel that that's the case as well these days?
Absolutely, because there's no way to make a mistake in the ring in front of an audience. The only mistake you can make in the ring in front of an audience is to do just exactly what you said, which is to communicate to that audience that something was missed or not done correctly by your body language and your reactions, and by trying to go back and repeat or do exactly the thing that you just missed. Other than that, it's been 37 years that I've been an in-ring performer. I've been performing all over the world, and I've never one time, not once, no matter where I go, no matter what style I've worked every type of style, I've never had anybody pass out a script of a match that I was about to do before I went to the ring. So nobody knows what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, or when I'm going to do it, or how I'm going to do it. So I can't screw up.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
when I try to watch the weeklies, and I rarely do, when I try to watch the weeklies, I end up passing out actually.
Well, tying into what Al's saying, I think it goes even deeper for me. One of the things I fell in love with wrestling was the acting aspect. And with the old guys, and with Al Snow in your class, and even before,
you say the acting aspect, do you mean as far as the physicality in the ring, or do you mean their character work?
I'm going to go even further than Al's obviously 100% right as far as but another thing I used to see from the old guys, I'll even give an example. Let's say Hogan, when Hogan was fighting Rock at Mania, there was no way of knowing how the crowd was going to react. The crowd ended up 100% going with Hogan, and Rock acted in the ring according to that. He started doing more heelish things, whipping Hogan with the belt. He was able to acclimate to the changing of the crowd. So, like, I mean, this is things you would see back then, where they would actually be aware of the crowd's reactions.
You also have to keep in mind that a lot of these guys are probably a bit fearful of just overstepping the boundaries, because right now, I mean, back then,
that's an issue in itself.
It was a two-dog race, even though it was really still a one-dog race. But, like, I mean, now it's when you're looking at, with the exception of the up-and-coming AEW, I mean, there's probably the fear of doing something in the back that may even outshine somebody else later in the card. For instance, what if you have, Al, you've probably seen this a million times. You probably had people who discuss stuff in the back that maybe would have been appropriate for their match, but maybe guys ahead of them said, well, no, that's going to overshadow what we're going to do. Right? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. No?
No.
Okay.
No, and if that were the case, then you wouldn't have every single performer trying to go out there and have the best match on the show. And that is the mindset these days, is that every performer has to go out and have the best match on the show. So in such, because of the fact that everybody wants to have the best match on the show, what we have is everybody going out there and going into business for themselves.
Sure.
Because a card it should be booked, should be operated, should be performed much like a wrestling match. You start with, and you do as little as possible, and you get the audience to pop, which means that they have an orgasm, they come, and then the next match gets them to do it a little bit more, and the next one, and the next one, and then the one that does it the strongest and the longest is the one that sends them out the door, which is the main event. But these days, if what you claim is true, then you wouldn't have performers all going out there, going balls to the wall, fighting on the floor every match, doing dives, and what they think are false finishes, which aren't false finishes.
Yeah.
No, that
those should all be reserved for the main event. Those should all be reserved for the main event or matches later in the card, because it's the right way to do business. And you can still steal the show by working your proper spot on the card, by getting the audience to pop to pop harder and stronger than what anybody can follow.
You're not doing your job.
Part of that is, as you said, reacting to the proper chokehold, reacting in the proper way, selling it, and selling it, and also maintaining your character during the match. I feel like that art's almost being lost, as there's this emphasis for WWE to kind of be like a UFC, and they're forgetting the entertainment part. In my opinion, like some of the acting almost seems like a lost art form to me when I watch some of these matches now. Because like you said, they're cramming in all these high spots, all these moves.
I think, Carmine, I think the best thing to do is when you ask a casual fan, it really, their opinion counts more than anybody's. And the reason why is because if you ask a casual fan to point something out about what he or she maybe doesn't like about the product, it might be a bit easier, because the fans who are invested solely into the product, just like watching anything, whether it's a soap opera, whether it's an ongoing
Obviously,
series.
we have more in stock. We've been watching this since we're 5 years old, as opposed to someone who,
I wanted to ask you a question now about some stuff that has nothing to do with this particular era that we live in. Do you feel, and I actually did a thesis on this gentleman years ago, do you agree that in the early part of the 20th century that Frank Gotch might be the most underappreciated of the important wrestlers of that century?
I would say that he certainly was definitely, influential, and definitely held a higher place than what I think people recognize. But I don't know to what degree how influential he was. I'd say that
the most of all time, hands down. No, joking.
I would say that Hackenschmidt was probably a little more influential than Gotch, only because Hackenschmidt had more of a crossover to, a much broader audience and a much greater appeal.
Sure. No, worldwide, absolutely. I think I should have actually rephrased that. Domestically speaking, Frank Gotch, I mean, in his time, he was a Hulk Hogan in terms of celebrity status. It was surreal to just understand exactly what was going on during that time. If anything, the big boom of pro wrestling took place during Frank Gotch's era, where I find the transition between the workability and the kayfabe aspect of it kind of switching gears during his reign. That was interesting, where he started out as a legit shoot fighter, catch as catch can, as you mentioned. And then he had to evolve. He actually had to transition. And the Carney style of wrestling was no longer as dominant towards the end of his life. It's fascinating when you think about it. Yeah.
Well, it's simply because if you want an appeal to a mass audience, it's not about what you do; it's about who you are and why you do it. And that's what an audience, a mass audience, pays to believe and pays to watch. They don't pay to see what you do because they can't relate to what you do, but they can relate to who you are and why you did it within the context of a competitive situation. And to everything that you brought up, that ultimately is the thing that's being lost, is that the performers are now focusing primarily on what they do, not who they are and why they do it.
Right.
I honestly feel like this, in all honesty, this is a legit education. I mean, if you listen to this, and I'd like you to talk about your school in a few minutes, I just wanted to ask you, growing up, speaking of relatability, besides for some of the wrestlers that you mentioned, were there people that you watched as a kid that you grew up and you kind of related to, that you really enjoyed their work?
Well, certainly, yeah. I mean, I've been a wrestling fan since I was, a small child. So, yeah, undoubtedly there were guys that... Did you have a favorite, or were there a group of favorites? There were all kinds. There were different guys for different reasons, that appealed for different ways. When the Sheik's territory was all that we got,
Right. Was that the big time wrestling promotion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ed Farhat's promotion,
Sure.
So, there were guys like Dick the Bruiser and, Crusher and the Kangaroos, Al Costello and Don Kent and, Conway Frankie Lane and, Fred Curry, even Bull Curry, because he was just such a character, such a, physical presence, just his look, then, you got, when Dick's territory and you had Paul Christie and Nature Boy, God, I forgot his name now. But just different guys, Spike Huber, guys like that. I mean, there were a lot of different guys, and when the Georgia territory, we started getting that.
Oh my God, everybody came through there, right?
There, and,
sure.
Yeah, and then we ended up getting Memphis, and then there were all those guys too.
Was that still during the Jackie Fargo era, or was he kind of already done on his way out already?
Jackie wasn't. No, I never got to really see Jackie a lot back then, but Lawler was very strong at that time. And,
sure.
There were a lot of great, and they were, let's face it. I mean, there was, Memphis was at one point. I mean, it was super.
Oh my God!
I mean, they sold out the Mid-South Coliseum every Monday night, 52 weeks a year for 5 years.
Incredible, and they had their finger on the pulse of what it was all about, because Vince Sr. actually rejected Andy Kaufman's offer of appearing. And, sure enough, Jerry Jarrett and Lawler just scooped him up. And wow. And of course, prior to Kaufman, they were doing hot business. I'm just saying, they really had their finger on the pulse when it came to the entertainment aspect of it all. And they don't get a lot of credit.
Sure.
That promotion doesn't. I mean.
No, they don't. They were definitely, they were groundbreaking in a lot of ways. They were I think they were probably one of the first promotions to do like the promo videos for the guys.
Right, the music videos, yeah.
Things like that.
Sure. Deviating from wrestling a bit, Al, as we wind this up, I just wanted to ask you a question. If you were on a deserted island, what 5 items would you take? Not people.
What 5 items?
Yeah. I would consider my wife an item, but that's not you. That's me. Go ahead.
This podcast canceled. This un-PC talk, I mean.
Well, today, right?
Yeah.
Today. Today? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I'm going to have to take, I got to take Ed, you can't do anything without Ed.
Yes!
Al would be the only person alive in the history of history to have Head on a deserted island, to get Head in it.
That's amazing.
Adverb, but go ahead. So you bring Head with you. Great.
Yeah, I don't need a volleyball. So.
Right. Wilson. Not Wilson.
Yeah.
Head.
Yeah.
Big distinction. Okay.
Well, Head is his Wilson.
I got you, Al. I got you. I'm getting your references. We're in sync here. I'm definitely not Wilson, but
Go ahead.
is it weird? But I gotta ask you, is it weird that I kind of like sobbed when Wilson died? Well, you see what I just said? He didn't die. He was a ball. I cried.
Yeah.
I sobbed. No, guys, I swear to God, I am not exaggerating this. I literally sobbed. Like, and I don't sob. You know, Carmine, you know me, Drill. You know, I don't sob.
I know.
The Wilson when he just couldn't reach him anymore. He's grasping and screaming, and Wilson. It's like
it never worked for me. I didn't. I understood what they're trying to do, but the emotional. No, it didn't. It was too silly.
Human, huh?
I laughed.
You're just a cold bastard. But no, well, I'm sorry. Al, did you saw? I'm so you brought up the Wilson reference, so you probably saw that. Did that tug at your heartstrings a bit?
You cannot bring up Wilson, and it's going to deviate.
I want to hear what Al has to say. Maybe it hurt him a little bit. It hurt me. Did it bother you a bit when Wilson drifted away?
It bothered both me and him. We went and watched it together. It was date night for us, and we both cried in our popcorn. So
there you go.
Wait, I got to ask you because you brought a pen. Wait, please, it's very important.
He's bringing 4 other items to the deserted island.
All right, I'll hold this then. I'll hold this question.
Please do.
Yeah.
This is very important.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Very important. I think that I don't really need much else other than just head. I mean, any head has it all.
No food, no shelter, like no.
Just
not a bow and arrow.
It makes sense.
Not a bow and arrow to kill livestock or something.
Reese's Pieces? No.
Yeah, Reese's Pieces.
I got to ask you, was that your idea? Was head your gimmick? Like you brought that to the table?
It absolutely is.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
We'll bring it back. We'll bring it back and talk about it again. But I want to shoot some last minute questions here out at you. So this is a game I like to call either or. I'll throw either or at you and tell me what your preference would be. And again, this would be based on individual items. Just feel free to respond as you will. Either or, Jay Leno or David Letterman?
David Letterman.
Nice. Yeah. Bugs Bunny or Roger Rabbit?
Bugs Bunny.
Kojak or Columbo?
Columbo.
It's our younger listeners who don't understand this tough shit. Google it. Gatorade or Powerade?
Gatorade. Come on.
Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
Jordan.
In the looks department, don't know if you could answer this. Carmen Electra or Jenny McCarthy?
Carmen Electra.
Godzilla or King Kong?
Godzilla.
You said it so matter-of-factly, too, like King Kong's a chump. Like, who would choose King Kong? Metallica or Guns N' Roses?
Metallica.
Hanging out with Mick Foley or a cardboard cutout of Mr. Rogers?
Oh, Mr. Rogers.
Got it.
Oh, no.
I have a quick question. As an Ohio native, where were you when the Cavs won the NBA championship?
I was actually, I think, living in Louisville, Kentucky. So.
Whoa.
Did you watch the championship game?
That's a good question. Did that mean something to you? Like, did that, pride-wise, or being a native Ohioan, did that kind of do something for you?
Yeah, because here's the deal. There's a law in Ohio. It's an unspoken one that all of our pro teams, no matter what sport they are, they must suck mightily for a very lengthy amount of time, so that when they finally do win anything, the entire world shits its pants in amazement that they actually won.
Yeah. Like, did you believe it? Like, when it happened, did you pause and say, like, wait, like, we actually won this shit? Like,
Like we all listen. Anytime any of us, like when the Indians won the World Series, when let's go down the list.
Sure.
When any of these sports teams have won anything, we all literally, as a state, collectively stop and go, wait a minute, you're shitting me? They won? Really? They actually they won? Oh my God!
Even when the Miz became heavyweight champion.
Same thing.
Okay.
Miz is actually a very talented performer, and I'm very proud of what he's done and his accomplishments. And I couldn't be happier for him. I really,
nice.
It's
both
like,
Leah and Maurice are trainees, former trainees.
Oh, cool,
and
cool.
I'm thrilled.
no, listen, the guy dedicated himself extremely. I mean, you can't deny that. And anyone, again, we're not going to make it about him, but I mean, as far as him being a fellow Ohioan, I'm sure is that what you were going with? Like, did he take pride in the fact that a guy from Ohio became world champ? Is that what it was? Or?
No, I took pride in the fact that I trained him, and I developed him, and then he went on to have a great career, and that's a reflection on me. So
absolutely.
Like they go out and they fail and they have a bad career. That's a reflection on me. So.
But I mean, when you were talking about rejoicing for just the single solid point of rejoicing when any team of any sport wins anything in Ohio, it's very reminiscent to my sex life. When my wife decides to give me the 5-minute session, I just rejoice. I mean, anything these days. And I'm saying this loudly because she's in the studio with me. Anyway, let's go back to either or, just to finish either or really quickly. So, you take the cardboard cut of Mr. Rogers over Mick Foley. I got that. Jerry Seinfeld or George Carlin?
George Carlin.
Nice. McDonald's or Burger King?
Burger King.
I would pick Burger King, too. This might be a tough one. Rap or rock? I know you're eclectic with music, but figured I'd ask.
Boy, that is a tough one. Probably more rock.
Okay. Ole Anderson or Bobby Knight?
Ole Anderson.
Schwarzenegger or Stallone? Could be their movies, not his people.
Schwarzenegger.
Nice. Pens or pencils?
Pencils.
Krusty the Clown or It the Clown?
Krusty the Clown.
Star Trek or Star Wars?
I got to go with Star Trek.
Larry King or Barbara Walters?
Larry King.
That's a good answer. Roller coasters or Ferris wheels?
Roller coasters, without a doubt.
I kind of get the answer there after we spoke about this earlier, but leg day or bicep day?
I'd say leg day.
Lou Thesz or Billy Robinson?
Lou Thesz.
Tiger Mask 1 or Jushin Liger?
Tiger Mask 1.
Otto Vance or Bam Bam Bigelow?
Otto Vance.
Misawa or Kawada?
Misawa.
This interview or Short Quick Death?
Probably both.
Wow.
Probably the latter? Okay.
So probably both.
Last thing I want to ask you, so it says the following is the final game we're playing, and then I want you to just go ahead and talk about your school. I'm actually very interested in hearing about it, but the last game we're going to play is called Says the Following. Which former colleague would say the following? During a trek on the road, which former colleague would say the following? Stop, I'm hungry. Let's eat.
That would have been Bradshaw.
Backstage, which of the following would say, "Oh, my biceps looking a bit off"? I don't know. Did they need some more polishing?
Oh, God, that'd be about 3/4 of the roster.
Oh, no.
We'll go with Blue Meanie on that one. On the plane, who would say, "I just can't sleep, don't want to sleep, fear of being ribbed"?
That'd be me.
Oh, wow. And in the ring, who would actually either say or try to make you laugh? Would that happen? Did that happen?
Oh, not anymore these days, but back in the day, all the time. And probably these days, you have to get in the ring with a guy like George South.
Oh, George South from the old NWA days. I didn't expect. That's a cool answer. Are the stories about Owen Hart true? Was he kind of like the Ultimate Ribber guy? Was he in the ring, out of the ring?
Absolutely. He was a wonderful human being, and yes, he was one of the more creative ribbers I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
Wow.
To just come to a close, I know that you're taking the Kleenex out and sobbing, or about to sob hysterically because this interview is about to end, but please, let's talk about what you're up to these days. I know you got a book coming out. I know you got the school. Please talk about it.
With OVW, I bought OVW, and I'm doing everything I can to restructure it and rebuild it, and make it an actual place for an opportunity for both up-and-coming talent to be trained correctly and learn the real art of professional wrestling and have a vehicle, a place that not many do, and that's an actual operational territory where we have a weekly television show. I mean, we're on consecutive episodes. We're on 1,021 this week.
Wow.
We had our 1,000th episode in October, and where you can actually get experience performing on television in front of an audience, and also learning how to, perform, to use those cameras to maximize that opportunity that you have being on TV, and then, gaining that experience of using that television to make you into an attraction or draw as we go out and do the live events on a weekly basis. We're actually, operational regional territory like they used to do. And there will be no other place that you can get that kind of experience that will allow you to have that kind of polish. So that when you have an opportunity to go to WWE or some other place, another platform, you'll be ready to do what it takes to take advantage of that opportunity. I also, in association with OVW, I have 17 Alpha Wrestling Academies located around the world.
Wow, 17. Jeez.
Majority of them in the UK. They go all across the UK. Then I have one in Romania, one in Hungary, one in Denmark, one in Portugal, one in Greece.
Holy shit.
One in Italy, one in France.
That's incredible.
Romania, and two in Chile.
You're constantly busy, Al. You're constantly on the go.
Yeah, I'm trying.
That's awesome.
But we're looking forward to here very soon making a groundbreaking, quite honestly, OVW is concerned. And it's something that's never ever been done, and an approach that hasn't ever been taken with professional wrestling or professional wrestling training. And here's open for that. We just did we've done our 4th live television broadcast this past Saturday in conjunction with a cooperative show with Impact Wrestling. That was
nice.
Great. And I'm looking to do, my goal is in the next couple months of producing our live weekly television show on television show on a live basis every single week. We are in the process we have the library for OVW that goes from episode 457 to the present day of 1021.
Right.
We are uploading those on our own Pivot Share channel. We're creating the OVW Wrestling Network, and we will have
that's great to have that content on there. Yeah.
We'll have different seminars from different wrestlers. We're going to have live seminars with myself, with Rogers, and other wrestlers that come in. You can attend those on the channel. We'll have other shows on the channel that are wrestling-centric, but won't just center. But basically, it's like the WWE Network in a lot of ways. We are also Collar and Elbow. I started my own clothing brand for wrestling fans. You can go to collarandelbowbrand.com and you can check it out. You can use the code
collarandelbowbrand.com, people.
Yep, you can use the code Snowman and take 10% off your purchase. And if you, even if we have a sale, let's say it's 40% off, if you use that code, you still get another 10% off on top of the 40%, so you get 50% off. So,
cool.
Go check it out, and,
It's definitely worth checking out, guys. I went on this website, I checked this stuff out. I don't shill for anything. People know I don't kiss ass. Go on that website. There's some good stuff there.
If you want to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and on Instagram, it's Al Snow, because yes, and we're some imposters, and when those people think that they're me, I simply write them a message and go, look, if I were going to fake being a celebrity, I'd raise the bar. So, I don't mind doing that. I'm flattered, but I would suggest you at least aim a little higher. You know.
Wow.
Al, you forgot something though, Al. You forgot the other plug. No, you were going to mention the Wrestling with Anything But podcast, which is us, about how we're going to be the new representatives for you and OVW. You forgot to mention that.
Wow.
I forgot that. Yes. Oh, in my book. I have a book coming out in May.
Yes.
With ECW Press. I've written a book because, quite honestly, I would never have done it, but a lot of people kept talking me into it, so I finally broke down and wrote a book. And I wanted to.
You seem like the kind of guy that would write a book. It
No,
makes
but I'm
sense.
saying it's about time. It's about time you actually wrote a freaking book, Al. Seriously.
Sure. Well, I wanted the title to be How to Take Shit and Make Shoe Polish and Other Life Lessons I've Learned from Wrestling. The publisher didn't want that title, so it's called Self-Help, Lessons and Experiences from the Bizarre Life of Al Snow in Professional Wrestling. So
who cares? It's Al Snow. That's what matters. That's what matters. It's Al Snow, and he wrote a book, and it should be freaking awesome to read it.
Yeah.
I would have just called it Head, to be honest.
You would just call it what?
Head.
Well, here's a question. Well, here's a question.
Hold on. We're going to do this right now and sign off in a couple of minutes. So, Jarrell and Carmine, if you have any closing questions, please pose it unto Al.
Yeah, I just wanted to know because from a wrestling standpoint, you do have your hands in. You just named a ton of places where you're training and you're teaching people. Because the first thing that you said that it's very important that you teach them the right way. Because of that, and because you have so many different outlets and so many different schools, how's the process of you finding people to teach these new people the right way? Because you obviously can't be everywhere at every school to teach everybody.
True. What I've done is I've created an actual syllabus that takes people through what skills they need to learn and when they need to learn them, and then gives an in-depth explanation of why they are learning those skills that will allow them to learn the next level of skills that will then allow them to learn the next level of skills and make them an actual worker, not a performer, not an athlete, but an actual worker. A worker, which that term has been misused quite a bit, is not. There aren't very many, if any, actual workers left in professional wrestling. There are a lot of wrestlers, there are a lot of performers, there are a lot of athletes that are amazing. But there aren't a lot of workers. A worker is a person who can work an audience.
Right.
The term for work an audience is to make them or allow them to believe that a lie is real. And the only lie in professional wrestling is that we're actually out there competing against one another to try to win and not lose. And if you can actually create that illusion, then you're really truly a worker.
Okay.
Amen.
Carmen, I think the last question you wanted to ask was you wanted to ask Al about some MMA-related stuff?
Yeah. I mean, what I was going to ask, I thought I lost my opportunity. We passed it quickly before, but I was curious of how you ended up making that transition into the UFC and training Dan Severn. I was wondering how that came about.
Actually came about through a very wonderful woman who passed away. And she's helped out a lot of different people, Sabu, myself, Rumini, Dan Severn, the Malenkos. There are a lot of people. She was like a godmother of wrestling. And Dan, at the time, I had trained Dan to be a professional wrestler and was working with him. And then he wanted to, when UFC was really just starting out, he tried to get into UFC 3 and couldn't do it. And Phyllis went to that, and she got Dan into UFC 4, and spoke to Dan, and both of them came to me and asked me to work with him, to train him, prepare him for his first UFC. And quite honestly, back then it was completely different. It was not like it is now. one, you didn't know, you fought 3 times it was a tournament, so you had to fight the first fight, and if you won that, you fought a second fight, and if you won that, you finally fought the main event, which was the third fight. You didn't know who you were fighting. You couldn't watch tapes. You couldn't prepare. And you didn't, everybody quite honestly had a unique.
Right.
Like, Dan fought in the first fight, he fought a guy that was a Muay Thai fighter. The second fight, he fought a guy that was doing a long style karate.
It was truly MMA.
He fought Chris Gracie that was, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, it was difficult. We didn't know what we were doing, and we had no idea how to approach it. There was a guy that was a boxer. I remember he was, that was his discipline, and you literally fought against different disciplines, unlike today where mixed martial arts has become its own discipline, where, everybody has at least game, has some kind of striking game, has some kind of ground game, has some kind of grappling.
Sure.
Back then, different styles had different strengths and different weaknesses, and you had to take different approaches to, combat those and try to overcome them. So it was really it wasn't really truly a different contest back then. So we didn't know what we were doing.
Sure.
But,
wow.
With Dan's, experience and everything, we were able to pull it off. And, Dan fought Hoyson at that time.
There's a ton to get into. I wanted to ask you down the road, would you want to come back on? There's a lot to talk about, if you feel the same.
Sure, certainly. We can make time and, find a place to do it again.
Ladies and gentlemen, a man, a teacher, Al Snow, Jarrell,
yes. Al, thank you.
Carmine, we're the Yahoos, and we're signing off.
Thanks, Al. We appreciate it.
Al, we really, really, truly appreciate the time you took. And I just kind of hope you had a bit of a blast.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate you giving me the time.
Cool. Likewise.
Chow mein, Godspeed.
Take care.
Take care, guys.
Take care, man.
Peace out.